Hello, I'm Jess Wagstrom, professional dabbler, and today we are dabbling in hoop making. Many moons ago, I made a video where I explained how long it takes me to knit a sweater and why a hand knit sweater might cost you a little bit more to commission than just buying a sweater from Walmart. That video was pretty popular, and I've recently had a lot of people asking me about where they can find like a good but cheap hula hoop, and so I thought it would be a good idea to make a similar video but for hula hoops. Before I get too into this video though, I have an announcement to make. Two actually. The first being that after about a year-long hiatus, I have reopened my Etsy shop. It's open at jesshoops.etsy.com. You can go there. I have adjusted what I offer in the shop. I'm no longer offering any kids hoops, no polypro hoops. I'm strictly making beginner and plus size waist hoop, core hoop, on-body hoops for adults. So if you want to learn how to hoop, if you're struggling with waist hooping or shoulder hooping, come visit my shop, see what we can do for you. However, I do understand budgetary concerns, so stay tuned until the end of the video and I'm going to tell you how you could potentially get a hoop for just $1. So let's dive into the actual video. I'm going to be showing you from start to finish how I make my hula hoops and telling you how long each step of the process takes. And I'm not just going to be making one hula hoop in this video because a hoop maker never really just makes one hula hoop at a time. I'm going to be using up a whole roll of tubing and seeing how many hoops I can get out of that. So let's dive in. The first thing we need to do is open up the tubing and wipe it off. Tubing from the hardware store is often dusty and can get pretty gross because it just sits in warehouses all day long. So I'm just taking a paper towel and wiping off all the grime. The tubing I'm using today is 3/4 inch 100 psi. This is 160 psi.
Kitty code.
This label
is the start
says
of
100
making the candles,
psi.
and just as a fair warning, the majority of this video until the end is going to feature quite a bit of making
160 psi.
but also some rough work. And so this
Whatever,
is technically.
Alright, so I guess I'm using 3/4 inch 160 psi. So the dusting took me about 9 minutes to complete, and if I were going to be making any larger diameter hoops with this tubing, I would want to give it time to relax. That means just let it sit there and kind of naturally uncoil. That will make a more round hoop. The next step is to measure and cut the tubing, and I'm making all of these hoops 42 inches just to save time. If I were making these hoops for my Etsy shop and I were making a lot of different sizes, I'd be adding a little sticker to let me know which size is which. I make all of my hoops collapsible, so I measure out one half of the tubing and then the other half, and then I stack them in alternating stacks so that I can keep track of which pieces go with which hoop. So altogether, I ended up being able to cut 9 hoops, and it took me about 18.5 minutes to measure and cut all of my tubing. So the next step is to put the hoops together by boiling water, sticking the tubing in the boiling hot water, sticking in the connector, and then connecting them. A lot of the smaller performance polypro hoops these days have push button connectors. The connection's gotta be like spot on perfect, and hardware tools are involved. I'm not about that life. I just didn't enjoy making polypro hoops. But the boiling method can also be time consuming because you have to wait for the water to boil. Putting all these hoops together today took me about 30 minutes, which didn't include waiting for the water to boil and the refilling. So at this point, everything has taken about an hour for 9 hoops, which comes out to about 6.5 minutes for the prep work just to get to the bare hoop. But now it's time to start the most time-consuming and most fun part of the process, and that is taping. So for this video, I'm going to show you 2 methods that I use to tape. The first is a single wrap style, which I call single wrap because I only count the decorative tapes used, since the gaff tapes are a lot easier to apply. For this single wrap method, I'm laying down 1 decorative tape and a 1-inch gaffer tape. The deco tapes are more difficult to use because they don't have very much give to them. You can't really stretch them like you can with the gaff tape, so you have to be really careful about where you lay them down. You have to make sure you're pulling them tightly to avoid any wrinkling or bubbles, but not so tightly that they buckle. And then once the deco tape is laid down, I go back around with the gaff tape and fill in all the holes. I want to make sure there's no blank space on this hoop. Everything is covered in tape. This single wrap method took me about 22 minutes, which breaks down to 13 minutes for the decorative tape and 9 minutes for the gaff tape. And then the second style is a double wrap method, which is just what it sounds like. I'm laying down 2 decorative tapes and then 2 gaffer tapes to fill in the holes. Now laying down 2 decorative tapes adds another layer of difficulty to the hoop making process because you have to make sure that you're leaving enough of a gap in between your first wrap of deco tape to put down your second wrap and still have room for the gaff tape. And you don't want to leave so much space that you have gaps in your work, but you also don't want to leave too little space so that the tapes are overlapping too much. It's really a measuring game, and you'll note that as I go along, I'm constantly checking my spacing with the backing of the tape to make sure I'm gonna have enough room to lay down all of my other tapes. Hoop taping really is a skill, and it's taken me years and years of making hoops and thousands of hoops to get to where I can do it this quickly and accurately. The first hoop I ever made, just laying down the decorative tape, took me like 2 hours. You really have to just do it a lot and work with the tapes a lot to get a feel for how it goes onto the hoop and how to work with it. And now we're laying down the gaffer tapes. Gaff tapes are a little bit easier to work with because they have a lot more stretch, a lot more give. However, you have to be careful because that stretch can end up causing the tape to look warped on your hoop. So now altogether, the double wrap style took me 32 minutes for one hoop. The deco tape alone took 22 minutes, which is the entire amount of time it took me to tape the single wrap hoop from start to finish. And the gaff tape took another 10 minutes. So with everything put together combined, it took me about 5 hours to make all 9 of these hoops. About 30 minutes for the single wrap hoops and about 40 minutes for the double wrap hoops. And that time is factored into the final cost of the hoop, along with the materials, which depending on the tapes used can get pretty costly. Some tapes cost up to $22 for a single roll. It also takes me time to pack the hoops up because I wrap them fully in bubble wrap. And then some of the unseen costs of running the hoop business include the time you spend driving to pick up your tubing, placing your tape orders, responding to customer service comments, helping people pick out their hoops. I consider all of that a part of what I charge for my hoops. Hoop making is also a fairly physically intense process. You're hunched over in one position, just wrapping tape. Your neck is down, your back is hunched over. So personally, I have to take a lot of breaks. I have to stand up, walk around, stretch in between. At this point, I do have the luxury of working a full-time job in addition to my hoop shop, so I know my bills are covered, but I did do this independently for 3 years where it was my only source of income. So just keep these things in mind. I certainly understand having financial struggles and wanting to find the best value hoop you can, but also keep in mind when you're asking a hoop maker for a cheap hoop or a discount, in order to give you that discount, they're gonna have to cut that money from their budget somewhere. However, I did mention at the start of this video that I would tell you how you could potentially get a hoop for $1. That way is I am officially relaunching my Patreon. I've actually got my Patreon up and running with perks that I think are kind of exciting. You can get Etsy shop critiques from me. You can become part of a Facebook group where I will actively be helping people out with their hooping. I've got tarot card readings, I've got mystery boxes, and also anyone who signs up for my Patreon between now and the end of August will be entered into a drawing to win one of the 9 hoops I made in this video. So even if you're only donating at the $1 level, you will still have a shot at getting one of these hoops. I'll also be giving away 1 hoop a month, so every month that you remain my patron, you'll have a shot at another hoop drawing. And I'm hoping with the funds that I get from Patreon that I'll be able to increase the quality of my equipment that I use for this channel, including better mics, better cameras, better lighting. I have a lot of ideas, and every time I'm editing, I'm just so frustrated that I can't do it exactly the way I want to, so having better equipment will help a lot with that. So there's a link to my Patreon in the description. Please check it out if you'd like to win one of these hoops, or if you just want to, throw $1 my way. It really helps. Please share this video with anyone you think might want a chance at winning a hoop. I hope that you found this video helpful, and if you have any questions at all, please leave them in the comments. Today we were dabbling in hoop making, but who knows what the next video could be about. My name is Jess. I hope you are having a beautiful day, and I will see you the next time I make a video. Goodbye!